Hey, loyal listeners. Welcome to Agents Influence Conversations with who? Me, Cass Dog. I am here with you, and today I've got a special guest, Miss Laura Adams. I like this, right? This is one of those that reached out to me. She has a firm, but I've also kind of seen her on LinkedIn. So I think there might have been some commonality there. But you may have seen her on NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, NPR, Bloomberg, New York Times. I don't know. Somebody watches one of those channels, or if all of them. So anyways, I'm really excited to have her. She's also has her own podcast, which I'm sorry, what is it? Money Girl?
Money Girl.
Money Girl. And so we're going to talk about that. Today is finances. Today is keeping things simple so that we can become better. So all the loyal listeners out there know, who is our audience out there, Laura, that insurance agents are terrible business people. Okay, probably a lot of people are terrible business people, right? And we'll talk about that. But I want to also talk about some of the things that, some basic, little simple things we can do to start being a better business owner. Sound fair?
Love it. Great topic.
Hot diggity dog, Miss Adams. All right, here we go. We start with 3 questions that everybody's been asked, over 600 of these. Are you an iPhone or are you a Droid user?
I am an iPhone user.
Okay, I won't hold that against you. That's okay. That's okay. Now, what's the last app you downloaded?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think it was a shipping app that keeps
Really?
track of all your shipments that you're getting. So because I order so much
Okay.
online, so it keeps
Uh-huh.
track of what I'm getting. It's pretty cool.
I like that. You know, and I was just talking to a friend of mine. I mean, I consider myself, Laura, a high-tech person. And he said, it's like Book It, or it's not Book It, it's something like reservations.com, right? I can't think of what it is. And he pays like, I think, $2 or $3 a month for it. And anytime he travels, all he does is forward this email to another email. And it goes into this app. And so anytime he wants to look at any of his travel arrangements, he travels 3, 4 times a month. He can just open up this app, and it has, I mean, if he rented a car, he just forwards it to there, and it has all of his travel in it. And I was just like, wow, how nice would that be, rather than going to the app of the airline or this or that, or going into your email and trying to find that. As soon as he gets it, he just forwards it over. I'm thinking, man, I need to get that. See, these little
Yeah,
things I
love
don't know
that.
about until you ask, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
It is. It really truly is. Do you love to win, Laura, or do you hate to lose?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mhm.
I would say I love to win. Yeah.
Yeah. Any reason why?
I just tend to keep it on the positive. I tend to look at, more of the advantages and the positive side of things rather than the negative side. So I think it's just a mindset thing.
That's right, girlfriend. I'm with you. I feel the same exact way. It's more of a positive thing, and I work so hard to get that. I have to give my body that reward. You know what I mean? And then learn, and then the loss is just learning, right? What did we do wrong? What did we do right? How could I have dominated like I have my whole life? Just joking, Laura. 2 things in the world have gotten you to where you are to help you dominate this world. We say here, as loyal listeners, that one is skill and one is luck. Which one would you say has probably been a bigger factor in your life?
Oh man, I tend to downplay my skills, so I would probably say luck, but my friends would probably say it's probably more skill. So I think, my own perspective is had great role models, great family, great advantages. So, I tend to see it as a little bit lucky.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, because you said my friends, and I'm just taking notes, my friends say that it would probably be skill, but you say luck. Here's what
Yep.
I want to ask. See, here's what I want to ask all you loyal listeners. Who feels that same way, right? Sometimes we are talking to our friends, and they'll be like, hey, I just got lucky in that situation. I happened to be there. I volunteered for that. So and so was happened to be there. I asked them for lunch. And your friends are the first to be like, nah, dude, you got skill. And it's funny how we can sometimes see that as Meaning it's just opposite of how two people are looking at the same thing. How you internally, who you are, is being seen as something else from the outside from your friends. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because that's like, wow, I didn't realize that I had skill until somebody else helped me see that, you know?
That's right. That's exactly it. You kind of need that outside perspective in a lot of cases to truly appreciate, how far you've come. So I think that's a great question, and I love that. I'll definitely think a little bit more about that now because I do want to appreciate my skills. I want to be thankful for my luck, too, the advantages that I've had, but I don't want to underplay skills, and you're right, nobody should underplay their skills.
So Laura, here we go, going to the next thing of getting to relate to you. Take us back to high school, college, or whatever, and bring us forward to who you are now in about 3 to 4 minutes so that we can kind of relate, get to know who you are as we continue down this road.
Yeah, I have always been interested in money. I was one of those kids that wanted to have my own checking account and manage my own money when I was very young. And I always just had a very personal interest in money and wanted to understand it. And so I was always reading books and, just trying to figure out investing and saving and budgeting and all of those things. And so when I went to school, I actually majored in science. So I think the math part of it was allowed me to do well in science. Then I ended up going and getting an MBA in business later on. Wow. That was what sparked my interest in finance. And so the personal finance was super interesting to me, but I really thought more about corporate finance. And when I became an avid podcast listener in 2004, 2005. Wow. I really decided that I wanted to give back to the community. And so in 2007, I started podcasting about finance topics. It took off. I got invited to join the Quick and Dirty Tips podcast network, and Money Girl started in 2008. So I've been podcasting weekly since then. We've got 680 some shows and have covered just an incredible variety of topics. So, that opportunity led to being able to write a book, which led to being able to do media work, et cetera, et cetera. So that really was a jumping off point for me with my career.
Well, it's interesting. You kind of stepped it, right? You just kind of went there, and then the business and the finance, and it circles back to what you always had a passion for, which is really weird. And we say that in a good way, right? I mean, that's unusual, and that is awesome. Do you think? What do you think was? Was it your dad? Was it your mom? Did you have a grandma? I mean, this was just something you woke up one day and you were 7 and you're reading finance books, right? What was it?
Yeah, I don't think I had an influence from really anyone. It was really just a personal interest. Now, I will say my parents were very entrepreneurial, have always been entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. They've never worked for anyone else. So I had them as very good business role models. So I think indirectly they were inspiring me, although they never sat down and said, this is what you do with your money. They really, kind of let me take it and run with it as I wanted. But they humored me. They said, sure, we'll give you a checking account. Sure, you can have, manage your money at whatever, 13, 14. And so they just gave me a lot of room to experiment, manage money the way I wanted to, make some mistakes along the way, and see them as successful role models.
I think that's everything, right? And it's good that they allowed you to blossom like that. I've heard this said before, and I think it goes to the base of it, is that the middle school and high schools that we have today are there to train employees. They need people to fall in line, and I don't want to say like zombies when I say fall in line, but they need people to understand what it's like to get up in the morning, work till a certain time. You go to lunch at a certain time, you're committed, you have commitments and goals, all things that we need. But it doesn't teach you how to be an employer. And that's the stuff that we need, right? That's the option we don't provide, because we don't, when it comes to the very basics of it, most people have no clue what's the difference between a liability and an asset. They don't have a clue. They think they do. They go buy a four-wheeler for $5,000 and they think that's an asset. And that's really not an asset, right? Because it depreciates in value and it costs you money to keep up. So I think when we get to the very basics of it there. So Laura, I just hired my son. Okay. He's 22. I told him he needed to go if he wasn't going to go to college, which he went 1 year and played tennis. The other 3 years he went and got different jobs, worked his butt off. And I told him the other day that when I hired him, I wasn't specifically hiring him for a position. I didn't need him to fill a position. I needed him to fill a role of buying me out in 5 to 7 years. And it's time to start learning. And that's the stuff I think it surprised him yesterday. Is like, well, I thought I was going to learn about insurance and stuff. And I had already told him, I'm not hiring you for a role. We need to learn the basics of what risk is. You know, what is a balance sheet? What is a P&L? He has no clue. And those are the things that I think he should have been offered, but you don't really have that choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. I mean, it is your right to own a business, to be a business owner. And so I do believe that we are really lacking in that education. So that's fantastic that you're bringing him in and kind of just letting him learn what is business before you actually get into the nitty gritty of your industry, because all of those things are so key. My latest book is called Money Smart Solopreneur. And I wrote this book because there is a growing number of people who are beginning to do work on the side. They're beginning to use apps to, earn extra income. They're creating extra income for themselves, either full-time or part-time. And I get a lot of questions from people about, how do I start? Do I need a license? Do I need to incorporate? What do I do? And for many people, those questions are holding them back from starting their business and really, creating the dream that they have for their life. And so my goal with that book was to really break it down from A to Z and showing people, it's not that difficult. You really need to make a few decisions up front, but for the most part, I encourage people to just start making a little money. Once you make about $10,000 with whatever you're doing, then you might want to look at, let's dig into the business bank account, looking at the business insurance, looking at all of these things that they might need to do. But for most people, I encourage them, get started, test your idea, find out if it's viable. Do you like the work? All of that good stuff. So building that business, but also building your financial future at the same time. Just because you don't have a job doesn't mean you can't save for retirement, right? Doesn't mean you don't have benefits. You can create your own benefits package as your own self-employed person, which a lot of people don't realize. They think that there are just not as many options. And thankfully now there's a lot of options for getting coverage. So it's a much more friendly world now for solopreneurs and folks that are interested in venturing out. And I love that. And I hope more people will have the confidence to do that. So, kudos to you for bringing your son in and making him the part of that growth beyond you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I say things a lot. I think business owners lose sight of this, Laura, that it's not so much the freedom you get and the assets you are building for yourself and your family, but to think that in 50 to 100 years from now, someone will have bought my business maybe from somebody else, and that person and that other person provided their family a great life, right? All because of the things that we're building and we're doing today. I tell my team all the time, it's so much more than the world we're living in today, right? It's what we're building for the future. And whether they thought it or not, the agency owners of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, they were thinking about that for me, right? And they didn't even know that. And now it's given me a life I never thought I would get. Now, whenever we talk about business owners, we're talking about agency owners specifically, and I hit on the fact that they're very bad business people. And I just say that because it really gets people's attention, right? Because it does, because we all know. And it's not meaning we're bad business owners, it means we purposely drive our company into the ground. It's just ignorance. It's lack of knowing something, right? Not understanding the basics of how money works. And the reason why, Laura, and I want to get your hit on this, is a lot of insurance agency owners, almost all of them, were insurance agents. Went to go work for another agency, got paid, 50% commission up front, 30% on the renewal, right? And getting paid every year. And this idea came to the agent well, if I go and do this on my own, I'll make more money, right? Because now I'm getting that other 50%, I'm getting that other 70%, and it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. The money that I made my very last year, this is almost not true now. I've been saying this for 5 years. It's almost not true. But the money I made in 2009 before I came an agency owner, Laura, in 2010, I have still yet to bring home that much money. Now, I could because my business, but I'm investing it back in, right? I never got that extra money that I thought that I would get because first 2 years didn't take any money out of it, right? So I think that that's a little bit of a difference. Maybe other industries are out there like that, but you've got a person who's a born salesperson that now is putting themselves as a business owner, and that sometimes, a lot of times, is a recipe for disaster.
Right. Yeah, this is a classic issue, a classic problem that many salespeople face. If you don't have the right team to kind of supplement your skills, so let's say you're a great salesperson, but you're not a great bookkeeper, you're not that organized, you are not really looking at the details of financial reports, then yes, it can be a recipe for disaster. So I think the trick there is always finding folks that have complementary skills to you. You don't need maybe, yes, you maybe need other great salespeople if you're hiring salespeople, but certainly to start out, you need folks that can truly understand the business and keep you organized. Now, maybe you're going to hire a CPA, or you may do that with contractors. Certainly that's an option too as you get started. But yes, that is definitely a challenge. And a lot of people underestimate the expenses that they have starting a business, what it's going to cost, to everything from technology to, these professionals, legal, accounting, all the things that you need. A lot of folks kind of go into that a little blind and don't understand, also the taxes that they're going to be paying. So it definitely helps to get some advice from a tax professional when you're starting out. Taking advantage of every possible tax deduction that you can is key. Understanding, where's that line? Where's the gray area? What line do I not want to cross? And risk and audit when it comes to taxes, and truly getting a grasp on that. Once you sort of understand that and get that set up, you are really going to be setting yourself up for much more success. But it changes year to year, right? The deductions, everything is just constantly changing. So for most of us, we need that tax professional to keep us updated, to keep us organized, keep us honest. And even then, it's still your responsibility as the business owner to review that tax filing, everything that they're doing. Ultimately, it's your responsibility to make sure you're double checking their work. If they make an error, it can come back on you. So you do need to be involved, and you do need to understand the basics of taxes when it comes to your business.
We have so many insurance agency owners that get mad at their clients for shopping or leaving them to go online, and their number one thing is, Laura, well, don't they realize they need an agent? But yet at the end of the year, they're always asking people what TurboTax program they should use in order to do their own taxes. And you're like, there's nothing more complicated than taxes. I mean, insurance is complicated, but it doesn't change every year. You know what I mean? It's pretty much the same it was for the last 20 years with minor differences. Taxes are changing sometimes per session of Congress, and it's like, wow. So you are right about that. Need the tax professional, really, truly do. And understanding, you said it before, delegation. And delegation internally as well, right? Now, a lot of times, 70% of the independent insurance agencies out there are around 5 to 7 people or less. Okay, so we're talking about a smaller thing. So a lot of times, that agency owner right now is wearing all those hats. And to be honest with you, that's just part of owning a business, right? You wouldn't believe how many people come to us when they're trying to insure their business, and I'll say, hey, so what's your gross expected sales? I don't know. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you don't know, and that's understandable. Well, so what's your payroll? I don't know, I'm going to need like 3 people. And it's like, do you have a business plan and what's going on? And I don't think I think that's something in all industries, you know what I mean? Let alone just the insurance alone.
Yeah, no, starting a business is challenging, and truly being able to estimate, it's a guessing game. You don't know what's going to happen down the road, but we have to do our best to plan the best way possible. And so that means getting good advice from professionals. That means maybe working with mentors who have gone before you and have the information that can help you plan accordingly. So there's a lot of different ways to get there. But the bottom line is if you don't have plans and you don't have a goal, you don't have anything to work toward. And if you don't meet that goal, that's okay. But you do need to have something there to work toward, and at least, have some metrics to measure along the way. You can't change what you don't measure. So that is the name of the game in business, figuring out what are the key things that you should be measuring, and that's going to change for different industries. You don't want to measure everything because that'll really bog you down with paperwork and reporting. But if you can figure out what are maybe 3 key metrics that I want to measure and really watch those carefully, then you can have a baseline and make sure that either every month or every quarter, you're making some progress on those key metrics. Or if you're not, getting to the core reason of why are sales down? Why are, conversion rates down? Whatever it is that you are wanting to measure for your business. Why are expenses up? Certainly looking at expenses and keeping an eye on those are also key. So figuring out a few metrics, and an accountant can certainly help you with that. And also thinking about, as you bring on team members, what are you doing to make sure that they're going to stay with you? Turnover is very expensive in business, right? Getting people up to speed, training, all of that is very costly. So what can you do to invest in your people? Make sure they're happy. Make sure they feel well compensated, appreciated. You're giving them some benefits. Doesn't have to be super expensive, but you're being competitive at least with other companies that are similar to yours. That's going to go a long way to make sure your people feel appreciated and they'll stay with you.
So not only is there like the economy of solopreneur, as you were talking about with your book, what was the name of it again?
Money Smart Solopreneur. And it also does address small businesses. So, it's a good read for anybody who's starting out in business.
Well, and to dissect that solopreneur for a minute, I think we're getting ready to see an explosion bigger than we have now. And the what do they call it? The gig society. Is that what it's called?
Gig economy, sharing economy, all of that. Yeah.
All that stuff, right? But here's the biggest thing, I think, Laura, is that 65 to 70% of the people live within 50 miles of the coast. So that means we have a lot that are still interior or in the middle. So I'm in Southern Illinois, and I'm in a town of around 20,000 people, and the next closest town to me is around 15,000 people, and it's a good 20 miles, nothing but cornfields and pigs, right, in between us. Our town is around 3 miles by 4 miles in a circle. Okay, I'm telling you this for a reason. Whenever I get to the city limits, if I go a half mile, there's no more high-speed internet. Keep in mind, I can drive 10 miles this way and see the arch. I can drive 6 miles that way, and we don't have high-speed internet. And it's like, think of the explosion. That's some of the good stuff that's coming from this infrastructure plan that Biden has. We're not going to get into that, but there are good in everything. And that is some of the stuff is we need to have a nationwide internet. And can you imagine the solopreneurs that will explode that right now are still on or they're getting satellite and it takes 5 minutes to download a picture, I think your book is going to be more relevant in 5 years than it actually is today. And that's one of the things. I wrote a best-selling book, and you kind of worry about the fact you put your whole heart into it, and it kind of every year that goes by, it's kind of learn practice. But I think yours is going to be even bigger in the future. Have you thought about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is something that is exploding now. It's going to continue exploding, as you mentioned, when the internet is more widely available. It is going to make a huge difference. I think the pandemic really caused a lot of folks to, reconsider their career. Maybe they were out of work and they thought, wow, I'm going to this is the time. I'm going to become a gig worker. I'm going to use apps. I'm going to get into a new career. I'm going to get, whatever, a real estate license or do different things. So people have really reconsidered their career and have looked at what are the opportunities. And a lot of people have said, hey, I love working from home. I want to continue doing that. And if I can't do it for my current company, maybe this is the time to make the leap to self-employment so that I have more control over my time, my schedule, and I have that freedom that I've been enjoying this past year. So yeah, I do think our landscape for careers and business is really in a transition right now.
So Laura, we saw it last year with the pandemic. We at Pod Squad right now, we edit and produce over 23 podcasts. As of March 7th of 2020, we didn't even have Pod Squad. But it was amazing the businesses that were like, hey, I'm kind of slow right now. And what's amazing is a lot of businesses always say, I don't have enough time to do this. And we and consultants and everybody get onto them and go, well, you really do. You're just not prioritizing it. I actually learned during pandemic that people really didn't have any time, because now that they had time, they were actually doing things. It was like, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Hey, I'm going to start a blogging thing. Hey, we're going to start doing more video, and it was, and they're still doing it. And to this day, so it's those little side effects that happen because of the pandemic, which once again goes into a solopreneur. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to leave their company, right? Billy Williams, who I was telling about earlier, who has a doctorate in finance, told me, he said, your job should either be your passion or should fund your passion. And I like that, right? So some of the solopreneur could actually be our passion that we can actually do now, that wasn't necessarily easy to do 10 years ago or 5 years ago even. So
the technology has made it so much easier. And as we said, it's going to get better for those folks that are kind of on the margins of the high-speed internet. So it will. I think it's a good point.
And then think of this way, Laura, go one step further. When Elon gets done in 2 to 3 years and you have worldwide internet, someone in the Sahara Desert, if they have the phone or whatever that is, they could literally get on internet high speed. How does that change the commercial world? Just exciting times. Me and my buddies say it all the time. There's some crazy stuff going on in the world, crazy stuff going on in America. Paul Harvey said, in times like these, always remember, there have always been times like these. And so I just kind of remember that. But at the end of the day, I say this is the greatest time to ever live right now. So much opportunity, so much freedom, so much creativity that's out there. Thoughts as we wrap this up?
Go ahead.
Laura, thoughts as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think that your point that online world and especially for insurance is taking off. There are also always going to be people that want to work with people in person, right? We can't forget those people. My parents are in that demographic, and certainly I know young people as well that like that relationship, that one-to-one, person-to-person. I want to sit down with somebody and have a conversation or go out to coffee and talk about things, and they feel most comfortable that way. So even though I work with usinsuranceagents.com, an online insurance aggregator, that's just one way that folks are going to find their insurance quotes, right? Mm-hmm. There is a place for that. And there's also a place for picking up the phone, talking with your representative, having a meeting. So I think we really do need to realize that people want to be met in different places. And we need to make sure that we don't forget that and helping people find the products that they need.
You're right, Laura. You're right. So Laura, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your information with us. I think we talked about a couple things. I always like to make sure we talked about things we didn't talk before about on podcasts. You know how it is. You can sometimes get into the same conversations because it's different guests. So it's new to them, but it's sometimes the same to the audience. And today I think we gave some nuggets, so I definitely appreciate it. Like I said, though, you kind of wrapped it up well. Anything else that you want to say before I get into our last two questions and wrap it up?
Oh, no. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So these ones get a little bit more personal, which is fine because leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And I know you're a leader. You must be a reader. What are you reading?
Oh, man. Right now I'm reading The Practice by Seth Godin.
Ooh,
so that's a great one. I have it on audiobook, and then a friend actually gave me the book recently. So I'm kind of going back and forth between the audio and the actual book.
Good stuff.
It's very good. I'm just starting it, and he's just a classic marketing leader. So if anybody is struggling with marketing and getting the word out for your business, I can't recommend that enough.
And he is a classic example of consistency. What is it? Since like 2004 or 3 or 2 or 5, he's written like a post every day. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, you've got over 600 podcasts, and so do I, and we think that's an accomplishment. We're barely at the beginning of this thing. But anyways, I do. And then last, maybe you have a boo and you watch Hulu, spending your time on Amazon Prime, or maybe you get your kicks on Netflix. What do you watch, and what's your show right now?
Oh, man, I love Netflix and series. Right now, I am watching The Sons of Sam, about all the murders in New York. So I'm a big crime fan, and have kind of gotten into that with Netflix. But yeah, there are just so many great shows. Another one on PBS is Atlantic Crossing, which is about the World War II and Nazi invasion in Europe, and just a great story about the relationship with FDR back then. So those are the things that I've been watching, and that's kind of how I unwind at the end of the day.
One of these days, I'm going to meet you in person. We're going to have a cold, refreshing beverage, and we could just geek out on a lot of stuff. I'm telling you, there's a lot of similarity here. I have less hair, but there's a lot of similarity here. I'm telling you that right now. Laura, thank you very much for your time.
Jason, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for everything you do for out there, with NBC and everybody trying to get the word out there, because one of the biggest things we have is financial they call it financial literacy, right? We teach people. I heard it said, rich dad, poor dad. I heard him say this was pretty good to me. And loyal listeners, as I wrap up, I want to say this to you, is that words are created to tell stories that help you understand life. Numbers are meant to tell stories that teach you how to manage money. It's really that simple. Laura, until I read that book, I had never known that. I had seen words as just words that told stories about explaining how life works, right? But I had never thought of a number being in that same thought pattern as to what telling the story of that. And that was really, really big to me. As soon as I read that, so a lot of people have read Poor Dad, Rich Dad. I'm one of those people that when everybody tells me to read a book, I don't read it until later because I want to read it after the hype's over. And I read that in the last year, and it's something that I really I taught my son that my son's. I have a 15-year-old versus a 22-year-old. So you get to the things that I see that I did wrong with the first one, I'm trying to correct with the second one. Anyways. Okay, so Laura, thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
People want to find you, they can find you on LinkedIn out there.
Absolutely. Find me on
Laura
LinkedIn.
Adams.
LauraDAdams.com, USInsuranceAgents.com, on all the social medias. Love to connect.
Fantastic. I appreciate your time. I really, truly do. And I want to remind everybody, I do what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass with Agents Influence Podcast. She's Adam, not John Adams' daughter, and I'm Cass. We're out.